Introducing the Champion's Mindset, the podcast that gives your inner game a serious upgrade. Join internationally renowned mindset and performance expert, KATHRYN ORFORD.
Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Champion's Mindset. I am here on my own today, and we're going to be talking about a universal thing, and that universal thing is called fear. Can you relate? Honestly, when we talk about developing a champion's mindset, that is one of the things that really can get in the way. So, get your favorite beverage, pull up a chair, and let's dive into this really powerful conversation about fear. Okay, so here's the thing. Fear isn't always loud. It's not always dramatic. It might be that really subtle, sneaky whisper that says, "What if I fail? What if my teammates laugh at me? What if the coach finds out I'm not as good as he thinks I am?" Etc. Let me share a story with you. Years ago, I was coaching a client who I'd also actually taught dance to from the age of 4 to 14. She had turned professional, she'd been overseas dancing, and unfortunately, she had to return home because her partner dropped her. And he dropped her in high heels, and she tore all of the muscles and the tendons in her ankle. So she'd been sent home to heal. Now, her ankle was now healed, but she was in a real funk. She lacked direction. She actually told me that she was kind of ready to give up on performing. And I thought, she cannot do that. She is too talented. So I asked her if she was going to try out again for So You Think You Can Dance. This is years ago, right? When they used to have So You Think You Can Dance on TV. And she said, "Oh, no, KATHRYN, I'm not going to try out for that." And I said, "Why not?" You see, the first year, they held auditions and she tried out, but she didn't get chosen. Now, it wasn't because she wasn't talented. She was incredibly talented. It was because they'd held auditions in every major city in Australia first. So by the time they got to Sydney, they only had 20 spots left in the top 100. Nowhere near enough for a city with so many talented dancers. So we sat down and we talked through why she didn't want to audition again. And her main fear was, "KATHRYN, what if I don't get in again? And I've got to go back and I've got to face all my peers. I'm going to be so embarrassed." Can you relate? So I said to her, "Carly, are you really going to let what your friends think of you stop you from doing what you really want?" Thankfully, she chose to audition. And guess what? She sailed through to the top 100. But around the same time, she also successfully auditioned for High School Musical, the musical. So we had another coaching session because she didn't know which one to choose. So we sat down and we talked over the pros and cons of both scenarios. We talked about how there was no guarantee of her making it to the top 10 in So You Think You Can Dance. And whilst it would have been really great exposure, they didn't pay their dancers. Whereas the musical was offering a 12-month paid contract to tour Australia. So she chose that instead. Here's what it taught her. Fear isn't here to stop us. It's actually here to alert us to what matters most, to sharpen us, and sometimes to wake us up, to shake us up from the ground up to get a hold of ourselves. Let's talk about the psychology and the biology of fear. And I want to break it down a little bit for you. Fear is a survival mechanism. It's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do, keep you safe. Now, your amygdala is your brain's alarm system. It's a tiny little size of an almond shape at the back of your head here. And what it does is it lights up anytime you're about to do anything that is risky or unfamiliar. So if you are doing something in your sport, in your dance career, in your life, in your business that you haven't done before, guess what? That damned amygdala is going to light up like crazy. It doesn't know the difference between walking into a jungle and facing a tiger or walking into a championship game or a race or an audition. You get the same reaction. Your heart starts to race. Your breath shortens. Your body tightens. And here's the truth. If fear is showing up, that just means your system is working. I'm going to say that again. If you start to feel fearful about something that you're going to do that you haven't ever done before, or there's a whole lot of pressure on you to perform, guess what? It's doing its job to alert you. It's actually working. But here's the key. Like what Carly did, you get to decide what happens next. The only way to get in the zone or in the flow, whatever you want to call it, is actually how to learn how to manage your fears. Because guess what? Those fears are not going to go away, but you get to choose. Will you reassure the fear that you've got this, or will you allow fear to run the show? Let's talk about the 4 common fears that can often keep us playing small. The first one is fear of failure. What if I mess up? So I coach a lot of basketball players and a lot of basketball teams, as well as all sorts of other athletes, performers, and their coaches, as well as high achievers in the workplace. So if you're in the workplace and all of a sudden the sales manager says to you, take over this presentation, and your inner critic starts going nuts, and you go, oh my God, what if I miss out? What if I mess up, right? Or if you've actually never been chosen as the opening 5 and somebody gets sick and you get to be part of the opening 5. If you're worried about the fear of failure, oh my goodness, what if I mess up? What if I let my teammates down? That's going to stop you from being the best you can be out there on that court. The second fear, so the first one is fear of failure. What if I mess up? The second one is fear of judgment. What will they think? Now, these sometimes go hand in hand, right? So if you're fearing stuffing up and letting your teammates down or your relay mates down or whatever it might be, you probably all thinking, oh my God, what will they think of me if I stuff up? Can you relate to that one? First one, fear of failure. Second one, fear of judgment. This third one is interesting. It's actually fear of success. What if I can't keep up what I'm doing? What if I can't keep this up? Like you might be popping 3-pointers in all the time in training. And so the coach puts you in as opening 5 because the person that usually does the 3-pointers is sick that day. And you're going, oh my God, I know I knew I could do it in training, but oh my goodness, what if I can't keep this up? Or maybe you have been the leader. Maybe you have been the leader of your team and they're relying on you consistently. You've got the basketball IQ, you know the best plays to make, etc. But you might be thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, what if I can't keep this up? Are they going to think that I don't deserve to be the leader? And the fourth one is the fear of the unknown. Now, that's like, what if I don't know what's going to happen next? Well, guess what? None of us know what's going to happen next. The only certainty in life is uncertainty. Let's face it. So we have to really get a hold of ourselves and go, I don't know how well I'm going to play today, or I don't know how well I'm going to swim today, or I don't know if I'm going to land this audition, but I am going to go in there and do my best to stay in the moment. Is this making sense? I hope so. So now, especially for athletes and performers, even people in the workplace, fear of judgment is huge. I coached a basketball player who was more afraid of what their father, their teammates, or their coach would think than of actually missing the shot themselves. Crazy, huh? And what does that do? It tightens their body. It hijacks their focus because they're focused on, oh my God, what are they going to think? It blocks their natural talent from coming through. So let's talk about fear of judgment. Fear of judgment is actually fear of rejection. I'm going to say that again. Fear of judgment is often about fear of rejection. We all want to belong. So here's where it gets a little bit deep. Fear of judgment isn't really about performance. It's about connection, rejection, and a sense of belonging. Our brains are wired to seek approval. So when we fear being judged, we're really fearing being left out, misunderstood, or worse still, dismissed. It makes sense, right? But here's the cost. The more we chase approval from others, the less we trust our own inner voice. So we start playing not to lose instead of playing to win. Goodness me, the amount of teams that I have coached where this has come up, I cannot tell you, over and over and over again. You have to actually practice not until you get something right, whether you're in a sales team in the workplace, whether you're an athlete, a performer. We have to rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. If we're a performer, we have to practice and practice and practice and train and train and train and lift weights and work on our mindset. Okay, so many athletes that I get to work with, thank heavens, start to realize that no matter how much physical skill they've got, if they don't have their head in the game, if they don't have the actual mastering their inner game, they are never going to develop to their true potential. So instead of playing to lose, you need to start playing to win. Okay? And in order to be able to play to win, you have to have put in the hours not to get something right, not to go, oh, I understand my 3-throw, or oh, I did my tumble turn in the relay really well if you're a swimmer, or I've really rehearsed this audition piece and I know it really well. It's not about getting it right. You need to practice until you cannot get it wrong. I'm going to say that again. You need to practice until you cannot get it wrong because it has been rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. And when you get into that situation, whether it's a game, a race, an event, an audition, your brain already knows what to do because it's been so wired. Is this making sense or is this making sense? Please comment in the comment section if anything I'm saying is actually landing with you. So, learn to be in the moment with no attachment to the outcome. Now, this is really tricky if you are playing a competitive sport or perhaps you are auditioning for as an actor or a singer or a performer. But it's where the magic happens, folks. You've got to learn to be right there in the moment. Trust that you've put in all the work. All of the work is kind of in your cape, your invisible cape that you show up with, okay? Superwoman, Superman, Superperson cape, whatever you want to call it. And you've just got to be there then. And that's a lot of the things that I actually teach all my clients to do. There's lots of things, including meditating, including breathing, including writing a script for exactly how you want something to turn out. And it's written in the past tense as if it's already happened. So you've totally primed your mind. And the mind-body connection, of course, is like this, that you are so well rehearsed that you can just be there. You can just be there in that moment. Let me share another story with you. Many moons ago, I opened my first dance school at 21 and I've been teaching dance for 3 years. I separated from my husband and I decided to sell the school and head overseas to dance professionally. So I found a fabulous teacher at the Pineapple Dance Center and I gave him 100% permission to actually whip me into shape. His name was Sylvester. He was gorgeous. And I said to him, Sylvester, I've been teaching children for 3 years. I want to really dust off the rust. I want to work on my technique. And I give you permission to really whip me into shape so I'm ready for auditions. Back then, I think it might still be around, there was a newspaper called The Stage, and it had all the auditions for dancers, singers, actors, performers of all sorts. And I noticed in The Stage that at the same time as my favorite teacher's dance class, there was actually an audition for tall girls. So I thought, in the dance industry, we often do auditions as a free class, and it's just to get our brain going, to pick up someone else's choreography, to really get ready to actually go for the auditions that we really want, right? So I packed 2 sets of dance gear. One set was to take Sylvester's class, and the second set, I added my chorus shoes and a really jazzy outfit. So I was in the change room. Interestingly enough, it was buzzing with nervous energy. Have you ever been in a locker room or a change room and everybody's really nervous? And I'm standing there, and most of the girls in the change room were much shorter than me. So I'm standing there, and there's like buzzing bees all around me, all this nervous energy, because what was happening was in another studio there in the Pineapple Dance Center had, I don't know, about 6 different studios. One of them was actually running auditions for musical theatre on the Channel Islands, but it was for normal height dancers. Now, you can't tell because I'm sitting down, but I'm 5'11" or 180 centimeters. So there was this audition also for Carlos Sandros, and it was for tall, pretty girl dancers. And it was for fully choreographed fashion shows through Spain, and then the chance of actually doing, after that 3-month contract, of actually going on and doing a 3-month contract in Athens at the top nightclub in Athens. Now, I didn't think I was anywhere near ready to get the gig, but I thought it'd be really good for my brain. It'd be really good for my brain to go in and do that audition. Or am I better off just dusting off the rust with Sylvester and helping him whip me into shape? So I'm standing there in the change room, hadn't decided, had my kit bag here, and I hadn't decided which clothes to put on. And this rather tall girl came up to me and she said to me, "Oh, you're obviously here for Carlos Sandros' audition." Now, I didn't know his name. I said, "Oh, is that the audition in studio, whatever it was?" And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, I'll tell you now, you'll get the job." And I went, "Say what?" Now, back then, I didn't realize that us dancers, we can look at each other and we can know whether or not we can dance. It's probably the same in your industry. Whatever sport you are playing or whatever, you probably have a pretty good sense of whether or not someone really knows, got their act together. But I didn't realize that at the time, right? I think I was 25 at this stage. And I hadn't done a lot of work in Australia. I'd choreographed a few hair shows, but there's not much work in Australia, right? So I wasn't that experienced. However, I got curious because she said, "Oh, you'll get the job." And I went, "You know what? I'm going to go to that audition and I'm going to see." Well, it was interesting. We didn't have set choreography to pick up. She had us doing progressions down the room, and she said, she'd do a kick combination or something, and she'd say, "At the end, I want you to do 2 bars of 8 and improvise." Now, I was good at improvising because before I ever attended my first dance class, my mum used to say to me, "Do what the music says." So here I am. I'm not there to get the gig, right? So I'm relaxed. I'm just having a blast, doing these kick combinations, etc. And she kept on. All these short girls were getting thrown out from the audition down the road and coming in. And I had my silver chorus shoes on, which probably made me about 6'1" or 2. And they kept on putting their head in wanting to do our audition. And she kept on saying, Jane was the captain of the troop. She kept on, "Go and stand next to blue socks." I had these leg warmers on at the moment that at the time that my mum had made for me. They were burgundy, white, and royal blue leg warmers. And, they come and stand next to me, and they were like 5'5". And she said, "Please stop wasting our time." Well, every time she kept eliminating someone, she was calling me out first and going, "Blue socks over here." And I'm going, wow, this is interesting. I ended up getting the job. And the reason I shared this story is because I had no attachment. I had absolutely no attachment to getting the gig. I was just there to do the audition as a free lesson and dust off the rust and get my brain going, get my brain used to picking up someone else's choreography. So, how often are you in the moment in whatever sport or performing arts or in the workplace, really? How often are you just totally present and in the moment, trusting that you've already put the work in? I'm sure you've heard the phrase, the acronym, that fear is either false expectations appearing real, because we get all these stories going in our head, but I prefer the other one, which is face everything and rise. So let's talk about how to turn your fears into fuel. And I want to share 5 simple strategies. The first one is to acknowledge it and say, that's my fear talking. Just naming it reduces its grip. You might even like to give that nasty voice, because there probably is a voice, or it might be a feeling. It might be a feeling that comes up when you're scared. So just name it and go, okay, that's just my fear talking, or that's just my fear trying to take over my body. Just really making it less than. The second one is to breathe. When we get nervous, all of our energy comes up here, right? We forget to breathe deeply down into our belly. So there are lots of different breathwork techniques, and one of them is the 4-7-8 technique. And that is, you breathe in for 4, right down to your belly. You hold it for 7. And then you breathe out as if you're breathing out through a straw for 8. Try that now. Breathe in for 4. Hold. Breathe out. If you do that 7 times before you hit that court, dive into the pool, go to that audition, go to that sales meeting or whatever, it's going to ground you. I also have lots of other techniques, but this is just a really simple one that I can share with you without actually coaching you. So, second one is breathing, okay? It actually resets your nervous system, which is really, really cool. The third one is reframe it. Ask yourself, what would I do right now if I fully trusted myself? I'm going to say that again. What would I do right now if I fully trusted myself in this moment? And the fourth one is to visualize. Just rehearse, pre-play the moment going well. Now, it's really important that you see it, you feel it, you hear it, and you hear what you're saying to yourself in your head. Your brain doesn't know the difference between real and imagined success. And if you know what your learning style is, then obviously you want to be visualizing in your preferred learning style. This is another thing that I talk about when I coach teams and individual athletes and performers. If your coach, for example, is constantly saying to you, visualize your free throw, visualize your free throw. If you are not primarily a visual learner, you might be a kinesthetic learner like me. I'm kinesthetic and then I go quickly into visual. But for example, somebody that is primarily kinesthetic and then goes into auditory is not going to visualize the same way that a visual learner is. A visual learner is going to get a really clear picture. Okay, they can brighten the screen, they can turn it up, they can make it bigger. A kinesthetic person, it's more about the feelings that they're going to have when, for example, they're bouncing the ball, feeling the ball as they're there. Then they're feeling their breath in their body, and then they're feeling their hand as it lets go. Put something in the cookie jar is what my daughter was taught when she was playing basketball. So remember, visualize in your preferred learning style. And if you're not primarily visual, you're not going to get a clear picture. You might be highly auditory. You've got to imagine all the things you're going to hear. If you're primarily auditory digital, you've got to actually imagine the process. Auditory digital people, it's all about process. Okay? So visualize. The fifth one, take action anyway. Remember, bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's going to be there. It's choosing to move through it. Put it in the back seat instead of putting it in the driver's seat. Okay? Let me share a quick win. One of my teenage athletes was terrified of free throws. Now, they had the skill down pat, and they would practice and do their free throws beautifully in training. But when it came to actually the games, she'd choke. So we practiced breathing. We practiced visualizing in her preferred learning style. Because as I said, one size doesn't fit all. She also wrote her script in her preferred learning style. She read it first thing in the morning, last thing at night. That's when the unconscious is still open, and the unconscious is what runs the show. So she did all of that. And she also rewrote her inner script, what she says to herself, right? Not only did she make her next shot, she became the team's captain that season. So let's talk about your inner game book. It's your turn. Here's your challenge this week to start developing a champion's mindset. Identify one thing that you've been avoiding because of fear. We all have them. Just really identify it and write it down. We can't change something until we're actually consciously aware that it's stopping us. Write down the story you've been telling yourself about it. The stories we tell ourselves and believe are what's shaping our current reality. And then choose one brave action you'll take this week to move through it. Just one little baby step it might be to move through that fear and do it anyway. And you don't have to do it alone. If you want support, strategy, or someone to help you decode your fear, head over to thechampionsmindset.coach and you can book a free 15-minute strategy call with me. And let's turn your fear into your fierce. And remember this, fear is always going to be riding with you, but you get to decide who's behind the wheel. Stick that sucker in the back seat. Thank you so much for spending time with me this Sunday. I so look forward to seeing you next Sunday at the same time. At the end of this podcast, you'll actually get to download a free copy of my book, which is called Mindset Mastery for Basketball Success. Now, it's not just about basketball, by the way. It's success in anything that we do in life. So keep taking that shot, running that race, attending that audition, whatever it is for you. Maybe it's a sales meeting. And keep mastering your inner game, because the bottom line is, no matter how much skill you've got physically, unless you're mastering your inner game, you are never going to develop to your true potential. If you found this valuable, please share this with your friends. Comment below. What was it that actually resonated the most with you? Because I love getting feedback to work out what I say and how it lands and what's working the best. So thanks again, and just know I'm always in your corner cheering you on. Ciao for now. Mental performance mastery for basketball success is not just about basketball success. It's about success in any sport you're playing or even in life. In it, I share my champion's mindset, which is the inner game. It's the inner game of winning. And I do hope you enjoy it. Download a free copy and let me know what you think.
Thanks for watching The Champion's Mindset with KATHRYN Orford. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week.